Elizabeth Rutledge and Mario Kalaika welcomed their daughter Christina Kalaika on December 19, 1986. Those who knew her described her as a natural leader who was effervescent and hardworking. She was loyal to her family, continually placed others before herself, and had a laugh and a smile that were wonderfully contagious. Christina worked at St. Bernadette's Daycare, a facility next to Darcy McGee Catholic School, after graduating from George Brown College with a degree in early childhood education. Christina lived in Toronto's Cabbagetown neighborhood. Along with volunteering for a related youth ministry, she was a leader in Youth for Christ. Christina had plans to go on a missionary trip to the Philippines at the time of her disappearance, after which she intended to go back to school and enroll in Teachers College. On August 5, 2007, Christina, her cousin Faith Castulo, and two other friends from her church group, Edward Eddie Meeg and Joe Benedict, set out on a camping trip to Rainbow Falls Provincial Park. The location is on the north shore of Lake Superior, about 200 kilometers east of Thunder Bay and 7 kilometers east of Schreiber, Ontario. The party decided to travel on short notice because they wanted to enjoy the civic holiday long weekend. They had originally intended to travel to Montreal for a youth conference, but the hotel was pricey. Additionally, Christina believed that staying with a friend would have been too imposing. Around 10 a.m., the four friends departed Toronto and arrived to the park 2 hours later. They were originally scheduled to stay at Campsite 72, but changed to Campsite 88 because it was much more secluded and situated beside Whitehead Lake. They spent the rest of the day relaxing after setting up tent and cooking the meal. The group agreed to take a quick nap about 6:30 o'clock. They didn't set an alarm, though, and slept in until 10:30 that night. They then lit a bonfire after waking up and kept chatting till 4 a.m. in the morning. About 2.5 hours later, Christina asked Eddie to accompany her to the restroom at the nearby rest area. One of them then suggested going for a jog, which astonished Christina's family because she had previously experienced an irritated callus. Eddie went toward Highway 17, a part of the Trans-Canada Highway that connects Thunder Bay and Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and Christina decided to run the trails. He claimed he had intended to sprint into the westernmost portion of the park, the Rossport campground, but only made it to a picnic area where he scratched the letters FCJE into a rock. After approximately an hour, Eddie went back to the tent and discovered Faith and Joe still asleep. Since they hadn't agreed upon a specific time to meet, he wasn't too concerned that Christina wasn't there. He went in quest of an axe to use to cut down some large logs while he waited for his friends to wake up, but he was unable to find one. Around 9:30 a.m., Faith and Joe got out of bed. Even though it had been 3 hours since anyone had seen Christina, they weren't concerned since, according to Faith, she had probably drifted off to contemplate. Joe left to take a shower after that, and Faith and Eddie got to work making breakfast. Around 11:00 a.m., the group started to worry about their companion. Along with the Lake Superior and Rainbow Falls pathways, Eddie and Joe drove up the road Christina had jogged. Before starting their search at about 1:45 p.m., they left a note for Christina in case she returned. The group stopped at the entrance to the park on their way out to ask for trail maps. The attendant was informed of Christina's disappearance and instructed to report it to the Ontario Provincial Police. While park staff started immediately searching the trails and beaches, the attendants started making calls themselves. It took Christina's friends a total of 7.5 hours to report her missing. Elizabeth wasn't made aware of her daughter's absence until that day about 4 p.m. 4 units, including 2 fixed-wing planes, a float plane, marine units, and 3 helicopters, made up the OPP Northwest Region Emergency Response Team's response to the scene. Approximately 100 police officers, divers, and specially trained citizens combed the region over the course of the following 17 days using GPS, underwater radar, and infrared cameras. While artifacts were discovered, they couldn't be definitively linked to Christina. The lengthy search, which was followed by shorter ones, was one of the longest in the history of the area, but none of them turned up any information on Christina's whereabouts. Christina's entire family set up camp nearby Thunder Bay during the initial police search because they were not permitted to take part themselves. After the official search was suspended, Elizabeth decided to raise money for more private searches. More than a year later, in November 2008, 6 canines were brought to the park that sniffed out human remains at the bottom of rivers. However, it was unable to explore further since the water was too deep and moving too quickly. Investigators conducted 3 separate interviews with Eddie, Faith, and Joe to determine Christina's last known whereabouts. These discussions yielded nothing, and none of the 3 have been implicated as suspects in the crime. Christina's family staged a vigil at the Scarborough, Ontario, Prince of Peace Catholic Church the month she vanished. A mass was celebrated on August 6, 2008 at Darcy McGee Catholic School, among others over the years. The official Find Christina Kalaika group was created by the family. However, it hasn't been active since 2011. A website was also established to spread the word about the case, but it has since been taken down. Just 3 kilometers west of where Eddie last saw Christina, a resident of Schreiber called Paul Gauthier came forward to claim that he saw Christina running through the Roseport campground on the day she vanished. Around 9 a.m. that morning, he was enjoying his coffee outside his RV when he noticed an Asian woman leaving the highway. Despite numerous interviews with him by police, nothing came of the sighting. The 12-song original CD A Day Goes By, tribute to Christina, was issued by Toronto's Filipino community in 2009. The entire sum was given to the Provincial Park's Rainbow Falls search effort. The OPP continues to say that the investigation into Christina's disappearance is ongoing. For information leading to her location, the Ontario government is offering a $50,000 prize. Misadventure is the most likely factor in Christina's disappearance. According to those who searched for her, she likely got lost in dense bushes and became disoriented, which would also explain why no sign of her has ever been discovered. However, some people think it's odd that there was no trace of her during the search. They claim that because the trails are well marked, it would have been challenging for her to get lost on them. Others wonder why she would have gone into the woods by herself, considering her lack of familiarity with the surroundings. Given the area in which Christina vanished, OPP detectives initially thought she had been attacked by a bear or wolf. When a Ministry of National Resources specialist was consulted about the situation, it was concluded that there was little chance of an attack taking place because no blood or ripped bits of clothing were discovered during the search. Christina was victimized in the woods, according to a third theory in the case. Given how long it took them to report her missing, some people think her friends may have been involved in her disappearance. Elizabeth doesn't think any of the 3 were involved in the crime, despite the fact that no one has been accused of being a suspect in the case. It's also possible that while on her run, Christina ran into someone who had malicious intentions. The park's close proximity to the Trans-Canada Highway and the fact that it was crowded because of the long weekend have led her family to assume that she might have been kidnapped and taken from there. It should be highlighted that the OPP does not think Christina's disappearance was the result of criminal activity. Locals don't think someone from the close-by towns would be responsible for such a crime either. Elizabeth suffered greatly as a result of the search for Christina. She has battled numbness in her legs and body, high cholesterol, and an overactive thyroid since the abduction of her daughter. She also skipped her brother's funeral in the Philippines. Given their lack of local knowledge, Eddie has admitted that he has many regrets about that particular day and that he shouldn't have allowed her go off by herself. On August 6, 2007, Christina Kalaika vanished from Rainbow Falls Provincial Park in Kilrain Township, Ontario, Canada. She was 20 years old, and her last known attire was a size 36 black pants, a blue hoodie, a striped purple t-shirt, and white running shoes. She weighed 126 pounds and stood 5'2" at the time of her disappearance. She has brown eyes and black hair that is curly. The case is currently categorized as a missing person inquiry. She would be 35 years old if still alive.